Yeah, cue the club music. The hottest club in town opened its virtual doors this morning.
Oh,
Woo! Elizabeth and Kelly hosted their book club meeting on the Twin Cities Live Facebook page and had a great time discussing The Stolen Queen by Fiona Davis.
We had such good interaction, so many great comments. The Twin Cities Live Book Club is now presented by the Yard. We loved reading this book. We loved chatting with our book clubbers about it. And Kelly is joining us now so we can fill everyone in and reveal our next book club selection. Hi, Cal.
Hey, Kels. How's it going?
It's great. It was a great morning.
We had such a good conversation about. The book is called The Stolen Queen by Fiona Davis. So this is the book that we just finished reading.
Just wrapped up.
It's historical fiction. So it's set in two places and time periods. So it's Egypt in 1936 and then New York in 1978.
Which you can't understand how that's going to work.
Yeah.
And then it works beautifully.
But it wasn't confusing as you're reading it, right?
No, she's very clear.
The only thing I got confused about is how someone who was alive in 1930s could be alive in the 1970s. But alas, that can be a thing.
It's a math thing. So what's interesting about Fiona, and Kelly and I got to talk with her yesterday, actually, so we want to show you some of that. But Fiona has written several books. She bases every one of them about a building in New York City. So she chose the Met for this one, and the Met Gala is a big part of the story. Take a look.
The idea for writing about the Met Gala and the Egyptian wing came from reading this article in the New York Times about the Met Gala of 2018 when Kim Kardashian went and she wore this gold glittery tight gown. And at one point she stood next to this gold glittery sarcophagus. And the photo went viral to the point that the Jordanian smuggler who'd stolen the sarcophagus complained to an undercover informant that he'd never gotten paid. That got back to the Manhattan DA's office that has a whole unit on stolen art. And they looked at the paperwork and found it had been falsified, and the Met was forced to return the sarcophagus.
No way.
Yeah. And I read that and I was like, what a great mix of pop culture, ancient art, all skewed together, and that's what I'm going to do.
It's quite the story.
It was really interesting.
So that's the origin story, basically.
Right. To think about
the inspiration.
The inspiration,
that
yeah.
there was a real photo taken and there was a real investigation about this photo and the sarcophagus, the mummy, the coffin. And then she created this narrative for us to read, this heist. It was a really cool part of the book. Okay, what else was interesting to Elizabeth and I was that the main character, the heroine, if you will, was 60. I feel like, especially in historical fiction, because that's what this genre is, you don't see that very often. It's usually a younger person, but we learn throughout the book that really you're never too old to make some really important life changes. And here's what Fiona had to say about that.
I knew right away that I would have a character who's a curator in the Egyptian wing at the Met who would be 60. Like I just knew that. I'm 58, and I just felt like there's not enough people in that age range that are, included as the heroine in a book, right? They tend to skew younger. And so I thought that would be an interesting way to explore that time period in a woman's life where you kind of do become a little invisible. People aren't looking at you the way they used to look at you in your 20s and 30s.
We love that perspective.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah, and then you got to know Charlotte really well.
Right.
Yeah, which is very cool.
For sure.
Okay, so one more. Can you? I don't have any.
Okay,
notes.
I got you covered.
They're not moving.
Okay, so there, a lot of times with historical fiction, there's romance in this in the book. There is a little bit of romance in this book, but it's mainly focused on another relationship, which is mothers and daughters and the dynamic between those two. And here's what she had to say about that.
You don't want to write about a happy family that gets happier. Like no one wants to read that book. And so I come up with the characters and then I give them obstacles. What's the toughest thing Annie could do is to have to turn away her mother, turn her back on her mother. And can she do it?
We had a really great discussion about that this morning.
Yeah.
I know on our Facebook Lives, Elizabeth and I are the ones chatting, but we are reading all of the comments.
And we talk about them and we answer questions and we kind of fill everybody in. And there's some people who, we love the book, and then there's some people who don't like it.
Yeah.
And you can have that conversation too.
But that's what the whole point is about, right? It's about a discussion on both sides of things, and other people's perspectives.
And that's why we started this kind of book club, because Elizabeth loved a book and I hated the same book. And we were like, wait a minute, two things can coexist and we can talk about books. But that's why when we pick a book, we've not read it.
No, we're
And
reading it
so
with you.
we're reading it with you for the very first time, and that makes it really fun.
But this makes me want to read more of Fiona Davis's books. We loved talking with her. She was fantastic.
Well, and the history she had to go through and just the research about Egypt for this is super cool.
See, that's even for me as just a guy that's not, approaching my 60s, and maybe not like the most relatable part, but I do love that history part of it.
Yeah.
So if the author is actually doing real research,
She went to Egypt.
and giving you real facts and figures and historical perspective, I mean, I can get into that,
Yeah.
regardless of what the storyline is.
yeah, I think a good historical fiction book makes you want to know more about that time period and about
100%.
the real things that happened.
Yeah,
Okay, but
100%.
here's the thing: the book club marches on. We
It really
thank
does.
you, Fiona Davis. We loved
Yes.
your book, but we are ready to crack open a new one.
Okay, it's time to do the changing of the guards here. We've got the Stolen Queen
Ready?
is out. And what happened to the McCrays by Tracey Lange is in. She is a New York Times bestselling author. We actually read one of her other books called The Connollys of County Down, so I'm excited to read her. This is her third book. The theme is it's never too late to reconnect with the ones you love in this tear-jerking story of a man returned to his hometown. So just briefly, a man leaves his town. He leaves everything behind, including his wife of 16 years. Why did he leave?
Woo!
We're going to find out.
We're going to find
But
out.
what's really interesting is when he returns, he's presented with the opportunity to coach a floundering middle school hockey team.
Oh, I can just see this
So
on
good.
some sort of Christmas special.
Thank
From
you.
what I
Oh,
understand,
yeah.
it's going to be great.
We're
I'm
excited.
Awesome.
Pick it up.
Good job, everybody. So thanks to our sponsor, By the Yard, for our Twin Cities Live Book Club. Stop by one of their 3 showrooms in Jordan, Maple Grove, and Woodbury right now. They do have a sale going on through Saturday, March 15th. You're going to find a link with all the details on our website.
And there you can also see the complete list of our book club selections. You can also watch our full conversation with author Fiona Davis on the Twin Cities Live YouTube channel. We'll be right back with more after this.
Yeah.
TCL's book club in partnership with By the Yard. By the Yard crafts durable, maintenance-free outdoor furniture and delivers it directly to you. With By the Yard, life is better outdoors.